Children of the 1970s grew up differently. Not faster, not easier, but deeper. They were shaped in a world without constant stimulation, without screens, without instant answers. That is why their inner core doesn't depend on external noise. They learned how to wait, how to think, how to tolerate silence and uncertainty, skills that are becoming rare today. Children of the 1970s don't need constant validation to feel worthy. Their confidence didn't come from attention, but from experience. Not from likes, but from responsibility. Not from other people's opinions, but from the ability to be alone with themselves. That's why when the modern world panics without a screen, they remain calm. They weren't raised for comfort. They were raised for endurance. When you turned 15, you didn't expect life to hand you everything on a silver platter. You dreamed of your own transportation, not a family car, but a symbol of personal independence. Instead of asking your parents for money, you simply went out and found a job. Your summers were spent surrounded by the smell of gasoline at stations, in the back of local grocery stores, or standing over hot grills in fast food joints. You worked late. You took every weekend shift. You saved every cent. In the late 70s, this wasn't unusual. Over 70% of boys worked just as hard. You weren't building a resume for college. You were buying your first taste of freedom. The day you handed over a stack of crumpled bills for a beat-up used car with high mileage, you felt like the king of the world. Even if it burned oil, the passenger door was jammed, and the radio only caught static on the AM band, it didn't matter. It was yours. That was the moment you learned a lesson that became the foundation of your life. You are capable of achieving your goals with your own two hands. That car was your portal to a world without borders. The deal was simple: be home by midnight. The rest of the time belonged only to you. There were no hidden trackers in your pocket, no monitoring apps, and no endless check-in texts. Just you, the roar of the engine, and the open road. You could cruise the main strip for hours, feeling the wind from the open window. And it wasn't boredom. It was life. If your group decided to change plans, you didn't send a blast message. You used your intuition and memory, checking every known hangout, from roadside diners to lake shores. You read the town's geography by the familiar silhouettes of cars in the parking lots. Your parents didn't try to remove every pebble from your path. It was parenting based on figure it out yourself. You were given space to make mistakes, to fall, and to get back up. If you scraped your elbows or got a nasty bruise, you were told, dust yourself off and don't make a mess on the carpet. It might seem tough by today's standards, but that's how a man who doesn't need a rescue squad is tempered. You learned early the difference between a minor scrape and a real problem. You mastered the ability to push through discomfort without stopping. That built an inner voice that whispers, "You've got this," when everything else is falling apart. Arcades became your first school of social analysis. Under neon lights and electronic gunfire, you studied human nature. You saw who lost self-control, who couldn't lose with dignity, and who could be relied on when it mattered. This wasn't wasted time. It was training in emotional intelligence. You learned to recognize a lie before it was spoken. Today, those same skills let you read a room from the smallest movement. Dating required real courage. To ask a girl out, you called a landline where her father might answer. You stood there, heart pounding, waiting for judgment. You walked to the house. You shook her father's hand. You sat in the living room. Because honking from the street was disrespect. You learned responsibility, decisiveness, patience. And when you finally made it to the drive-in movie, you enjoyed every second, because you knew what it took to get there. Your youth taught you to value presence. You and your friends could sit for hours in a parked car or a cheap diner, talking about everything. You weren't watching life through other people's profiles. You were there. Unstructured time wasn't a problem. It was space for imagination. That's why today you can handle silence, a long drive, your own thoughts. When the world got loud, you retreated into music. One album, bought with hard-earned money, played from start to finish. This wasn't loneliness, it was self-discovery. You built a core that doesn't depend on applause. You became resilient before the word existed. Failure didn't go viral. You absorbed it. You learned. You moved on. Losing wasn't the end. It was information. That's why today you see obstacles as temporary. You know storms pass. You learned depth, presence, discernment. You are proof that strong character is built in silence, and that strength is why you stand steady while the world shakes. Which specific moment from your past in the 70s laid that foundation of strength that still carries you today? Share it in the comments. I genuinely want to hear your story. And if this resonated with you, consider subscribing. It supports the channel and helps us keep creating content for people who value depth over noise.